Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Healthcare India podcast. I'm here with a very special guest today. It's a very unusual topic, but not unknown to a lot of the people who've been following me. Uh, First of all, I want to welcome Kristy Berry all the way from the US, CEO of Cenegenics. Uh, Kristy, can you tell us something about your exciting career, which is fascinating?
Absolutely, Dr. Vikram. And thank you again so much for having me on and to all of the audience that's listening in. So, as you said, I'm the CEO of Cenegenics. I actually have been with Cenegenics almost since its inception. We really pioneered the space of longevity medicine and performance health medicine back in 1999. And I actually joined in 1997. So I've been with the company for 27 of its 29 years. I've always had a passion for helping people and really just being part of, creating an impact and creating, long-term health success.
Right.
And I was introduced to Cenegenics and actually started as the very first patient services associate. So almost the reception level position, so entry level role. And I was going to college part time for the nursing program with every intent to move into that once I was accepted and just transition out of Cenegenics so that I could focus full time on the nursing program. And throughout my initial months at the company, I had some unique opportunities to work very closely with the former founder, and I was pulled into just the overall operations and business side of what we were doing at Cenegenics to help people improve their health. And it was so interesting, and I really became quite interested in it and wanted to just learn more. And I never really realized that business and clinical can absolutely come together and work harmoniously in a way that is still again very much focused on patient outcome.
Right.
So fast forward, I was accepted into the nursing program. I actually was enjoying everything that I was doing and had been given more responsibility and more kind of involvement into the day-to-day operations. And so I decided to just pause on going into nursing school. I really wanted to kind of pursue this kind of business aspect a little bit longer. And I guess the rest is history because I continued to really thrive in the company, really be able to take on more responsibility and really help shape how we show up in the marketplace for people looking to improve their health. So I was promoted multiple times throughout my tenure there. I, kind of went through, the supervisor, manager, director levels. By 2005, I was promoted to COO. In 2018, I became president, and then in 2020, I actually became the CEO of the company. So I've been able to sit in the CEO role now for the last 5.5 years, and it has been such an incredible journey for me personally, professionally, and especially when I think about, we started with one location here in the U.S., and over that period of time, it was really kind of condensed into like a 10-year time frame. I was able to be the person spearheading the national expansion of our footprint presence. So today we have 20 locations in the US, 8 international, and it's just really incredible to have had this personal, like professional journey that aligns so closely with what I'm most passionate about, and that is helping people, really optimize as they age.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. It reminds me of my good friend Raj Gore, who also rose all the way from front office to CEO. So I see a lot of similarities, and the good part is you've seen it all. So it's very difficult for somebody not in your position to appreciate what you've done, but just the and it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about. It's not only your lifespan; it's the span of your career. And let's segue into the most important topic that I have for you. Uh,
Yes.
so longevity is a very fascinating topic here in India, and it became very popular because Brian Johnson had come to India and he had done a podcast uh, with one of our leaders. But longevity is always considered a very niche area. It is considered an elite obsession or optimization. Uh, but when I read about you and what the work you've done, it's what does longevity realistically look for a common man over the next decade? And that's going to be my first question.
Oh, I love that question. That is like a fantastic question. It's so interesting because, having just kind of shared a bit about, us pioneering the space almost 30 years ago, when I
Hmm.
think ahead, right? And I think about, what is the next, 3, 5, 10 plus years going to look like?
Right,
I really believe that healthcare is going to start to shift
right,
from being focused on what you might call sick care or just treating symptoms. And we're going to start to see a shift towards people taking, in healthcare in general, and the providers and the health systems, taking a more proactive approach to how we can catch things early so that we can delay and or reverse the onset of disease, and really setting each and every person up for continued health optimization as they age so that they really are increasing their health span,
right.
being able to stay active in their, those outer decades of their life, doing all the things that they love. I certainly don't think that we're here today yet, to be, kind of like mass or more widely accepted. But I think the awareness that's been driven to this space, especially over the last 5 years,
Hmm.
has been so impactful in the sense that people are now taking notice and saying, I want to take back control of my health. I want to be the CEO of my body. And I want to try and identify what are all the resources available to me so that I can, stay at peak performance and continue to feel great as I age and not have to settle for what maybe traditional medicine has otherwise said is normal, right? Because for me, those normal ranges are really average. And, I don't think any of us want to be average in our lives, so whatever your life looks like, you want to be the best at whatever, drives and motivates you and how you show up every single day. So I think it's going to be a progression. So I think we've had a really great start in the last 5 years. I think we're going to slowly start to see that especially around like primary care,
Hmm.
I really see primary care starting to adopt more of that preventive approach to each and every person's health. And I think that's where it's going to start first. So that's like, saying, look, let's, instead of, treating the disease or just treating symptoms, let's get to the root cause. Let's be preventive. And then the next level, and this is probably, kind of more in the like outer years, like, 10 plus years, I see that, I really believe that we're going to see where now primary care wants to take a personalized approach to
Hmm.
each and every person and not just grouping people into kind of the normal averages or the normal
Right,
ranges, and really being able to offer the testing and the diagnostics necessary to be so precise and really deliver precision medicine, so that people are thinking it's not just I want to live longer, but how can I live longer, but how can my years that I'm living be as fulfilling
fruitful.
and
Absolutely.
optimized as possible.
I hear you. But let me get into a controversial topic then. Uh, so, do you think from a consumer point of view, because a lot of the people who are listening to us are not doctors and they're not nothing to do with the healthcare systems, but they are consumers of health. Um, is it? We always talk about lifespan. You know, because anybody asks, "Oh, what's the average longevity in your country?" Uh, is it? Is it? Is it a good time to start measuring realistically health span as opposed to lifespan? Uh,
I absolutely think it is. And I definitely don't think it's ever too late, right? So, oftentimes we have patients say to us, look, I'm 65 or I'm 70, I'm 75. Is there really anything that I can do that's going to be enough for me to like have that benefit and feel those health changes, right? To kind of make me feel it might like I did in my younger years. And my answer is yes. Like this approach to health is absolutely one for everybody, and two, it's never too late because the moment you start, that is really planning. You're playing the long game, right? And but you start it with like near term goals. So the little incremental decisions and changes that you make, or new things that you start adopting into your everyday lifestyle and habits, those near term changes and impacts that they will create set you up for greater long term success well into your older years. And if you think about whether it's just a single individual, or even frankly even like employers, right? So companies who employ people, so whether it's they employ 10 people or they employ 10,000 people, I think when employers also can reinforce and start recognizing that aligning with healthspan and starting to provide, whether it's just lunch and learns, or newsletters, or access to nutritionists or performance health coaches, or even a physician to speak on the key things that each and every one of us face every day. So whether that's our energy, our body composition, our metabolic markers, our sleep, our cognition and strength, on and on and on. When we can start addressing each and every one of those, and start making those lifestyle changes, and now they become habits, right? They become sustainable. It's not just like a quick fix. It's not something that is started and stopped for just a select period of time. It
Right.
now becomes part of like your own personal ethos that you live by. And in doing that, you are very gradually, continuously tweaking, improving, enhancing your overall health. And that is where health span, I think, is the most powerful approach that everyone should be focused on versus lifespan, because health lifespan will follow health span. It's inevitable. You're going to be healthier. You'll barring a significant
Right.
event that isn't foreseen, you're likely going to live longer and feel better. So if you think about health span,
Mhm.
that's where I think everybody's focus should really be. And again, it's bite-sized pieces. I like to say, it's like you don't have to do everything all at once. Like
Right.
take a very thoughtful approach and do it, and embody it, embrace it in a way that works for you. And as long as you're doing something constantly and you continue to evolve and you don't just stop and stay stuck there, that is going to allow you to age in a way that you otherwise probably wouldn't have if you just continue to just wait for like the symptom to occur and then try and treat it, and you're kind of like behind already. So this gets you out in front of it.
Right. But I have a challenge you usually here, because organizations might want to help you. They might want to set up corporate wellness programs. They might do all these lunch and learns and all these wonderful things. But then at the end of the day, it's the individual, right? I mean,
It
you said
is.
you are the CEO of your body and you have to take charge. So what are some of your experiences with individuals particularly, and the barriers to really do this? Because all of us are set in our ways, and we then we find it very difficult to change after a while, and especially the demographics I'm talking about, the 40 to 60. That's where you have to really start taking charge, because till then the body pretty much absorbs every abuse given to it. But after that, you have to start taking charge. Otherwise, the 60 plus becomes a challenge after that.
No, it does, and it's a totally fair point and question, and I think that's where it's so important for the individual to, I think the first step is stop guessing. Like don't guess whether you're healthy or not. Don't guess whether you might be predisposed for a certain illness or disease, right? In your future.
Right.
Find out today. So then for me it's measure. So now you stop the guesswork and now let's just measure. Let's just get as much information as we can
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves. So let's look at our biomarkers. Let's look at our biometrics. Understand how our body is functioning. And then with that information, I think it is really, really imperative that people recognize that it is a lot of information. Like you're going to learn so much more about yourself than you ever have, but then what do you do with it? Right?
Right.
So being able to partner with a physician who has expertise in the longevity, preventive medicine, precision health field, right? Being able to partner with a performance health coach, nutritionist that really understands nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, so that they can help you interpret the data that you've now collected on yourself or that's been collected, and they can help identify how do we want to think about where you're at today, coupled with, of course, your family history, your personal past history,
Right.
how you feel right now, as well as what are your goals, right? Is it, you know what, I want to still be able to play football with my grandkids in 20 years, right? Or I love to cross country ski. I want to still be on the ski slopes when I'm 75 years old, whatever it is. All of the information that's gathered and interpreted with an expert in the space then allows you to really dissect and come up with a personalized plan for you. Because what I might need, what you might need, what your viewers need, it's going to all look very different. And so being able to have the insights to understand like how things work together. And also, you know what? Lifestyle wise, maybe you're a busy executive and you travel a lot. So, it's not as easy as doing meal prep every single day, right? Because
Right.
you're on the road. So
Right.
it's identifying where in your current lifestyle can we start making certain changes based on the data that we've received that is going to start setting you up to be healthier, to be more successful, so that it can be sustainable. I think that, although the awareness has grown in the last 5 years, which is wonderful. It has also introduced information overload. So it's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I have all this information now.
Right.
What do I look at? What do I do with it? And that's why partnering with experts in this field of medicine is so important, because they are the ones that can really help you navigate and prioritize, right? Because let's just say like 5 things like pop up or flagged. You don't necessarily have to address all 5 at once, but let's prioritize them based on, what's most impactful to your health and what do we need to like address. But also, how does that get addressed and weaved into your everyday life so that it is attainable and something that you can sustain long term, and not, start and have to stop it because it's just completely outside of anything that you could like continue to do like on a regular basis, right? So how do we create those sustainable changes? And then once we have, right? And that's the other thing. It's not just a one and done. Continuously getting follow-up monitoring
Right.
to check in, on your body. Do another blood draw, repeat some diagnostics to understand how's your body responding to the 3 of the 5 changes that you made from your visit, 3 months ago. All right, looks like things are moving in the right direction. Now let's go after that 4 and 5 that we first identified. And how do we address that? How do we weave that in now? And again, that's what makes it something that you can really own. And as the CEO of your body, you can own the changes, you can own the speed at which things are happening, but you've got somebody there to lean on and that's going to help guide you on that journey, because your body's going to continue to change as you age, even when you're optimizing it. And you're going to need to navigate different time periods, and being able to do that with somebody that you trust, that is expert in the space, that's really what is going to be most helpful and successful for any individual.
No, I think that's a wonderful piece of insight. I don't know if people were paying attention. You clearly mentioned make changes, monitor. So it's like a closed loop system. It's not like I'm going to walk, say 10K steps and that's done.
Right.
Whether that 10K is really helping you with whatever parameters you're tracking. I think that's a wonderful piece of insight, and you couldn't have, I mean, it was very eloquently put. But I have
Thank
a follow-up question for you, and this is my biggest problem today. So you have genetic data. I can do a genetic testing and see what I'm more predisposed to. I can do blood draws. I obviously can do a scan every year, get an MRI or get a CT, ultrasound, etc. I have a feeling that there is a lot of overload, like
you.
you alluded to some time ago. There's data, there's diagnostics. Do you think longevity is a platform play? It is not a product, it's a platform because you have, of course, you have the tests, you have diagnostics, you have genetic data, which we have access to now. Plus, you have the coaching, the nutritionist, the workout, of course, your own GP or whichever doctor is treating you. So it becomes a platform with all these things plugged in. Do you see that going in that direction?
Yeah, I do. I do. It is absolutely, longevity is absolutely on the path, and it will become a platform,
Hmm.
because no single intervention alone wins, right?
Right.
It is our bodies are so complex, and everything is working with each other at different rates and ways. And so when you just focus singularly on, whether it's, you're wearing a wearable device for like sleep, you're just focusing on that, you can get you can get almost caught off guard or off track or put off track, because if you just are addressing that, there are so many other things and factors that go into how you sleep, right? So
Right.
I really think that a platform approach, which is where longevity will be, it's about integrating the data, the diagnostics, the coaching, the physician oversight, the targeted therapeutics into like a long-term relationship model, because again, as I said, everything is so interconnected, and platforms also can be personalized and will, need to be adjusted over time. um, and so thinking of it in that way really reinforces, I think, the accountability and continuity of your health. And that's actually, a space where I think, the current healthcare is a bit fragmented, but
Right.
really approaching it as a platform ensures that this again, we're in this for the long game, and because everything is so interconnected together, being able to weave all of the key resources and information and diagnostics, et cetera, in together over that period of time and navigate it as you age is like the secret sauce. Like that is that I would say, when we get to that point, we're all winning with our health, because I have said it time and time again, but I think a lot of people, or a lot of the population, they just want like a pill. Like, can you just give me a pill to make me feel better all around, right?
Right.
And they want that single source miracle, and that's, I wish it was true, but it's not. You really have to think about it like your body is an operating system, and you really
Mhm.
have to address everything together to
Mhm.
maximize outcome.
No, I think that's a great point. When you said the pill, it reminded me of two things. My professors in my first year of med school used to tell me two things. There was this professor who was very, I would say, he's a bit of a sarcastic guy, and he used to keep telling us two things. One was he says, "You guys want a pill called a vitamin B?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, we know B." He said, "No, no, that's for brains, because you're not applying yourself. And if we continue down that path and we don't apply ourselves, he'll say, you know what? there are many vestigial organs. We'll say, yeah, yeah, appendix and all that. He said,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Next is your brain because you're not using it. So he used to say that anything you don't use becomes a vestigial organ, and he was a very sarcastic person. Which brings me to another interesting point that I've been observing, and this is more from my India lens, Christy, and I know you are aware of the country, but the challenge we face in India is the disease onset is about a decade earlier than the West. And
Mm,
I say West generically, but what I essentially mean is United States, Canada, and most of Western Europe. We
mhm.
don't have that much data to compare against Eastern Europe or other parts of the country. So, when in a country, if suppose somebody has an onset of diabetes at the 50s in the US, it will be the 40s in India. So
Okay.
when um, a disease intervention program has to be set up, or anybody is listening to us and wants to say, okay, I heard Christy and it resonates with me. What do I do now? When the disease onset is about a decade earlier, or
Mm.
thereabouts, what are the changes you would recommend to a program? What can they do, especially to the listeners in India? What can they do? Should they start early? How do they start?
Yeah, I definitely start now, right? So the earlier you can start, that really does again give you that increased maximum benefit of creating that long-term health span
Mm-hmm.
for yourself. So definitely start early, and especially to your point, in India, if you are seeing incidents of disease at a more accelerated rate than you otherwise would, in other places around the country, I think that it's making the decision to take back control of your health and say, okay, I know that, I'm just probably predisposed to diabetes or other, health issues earlier than, others might be. And because I know this, because I have that information, I'm going to make an active decision to start identifying how can I identify the screenings or the physicians or the approaches
Mm-hmm.
to getting my body in order so that I can avoid or delay what might otherwise be inevitable. So, early stage adoption of taking back control of your health. And I think really focusing on, like, first and foremost is understanding what your biomarkers are. If you don't start anywhere else, yeah, and most people might already have the wearables or go do, the different therapies like red light and yoga. I think all of that's wonderful. So I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying that, but whether you're doing it already or you've been contemplating doing those things, your next step really should be about getting your lab panel drawn so that you can look at your biometrics, or excuse me, your biomarkers, to really understand what is going on with your metabolic health, right? And understand everything from your glucose and insulin and hemoglobin A1C to your cholesterol panel, to your cortisol levels, to your hormone panel, which is so important. And being able to get that information is then going to allow you to help identify in your community, what then are some things or low, different touch points, whether it's high frequency, low cost, whatever it might be, but mobile coaching apps, local labs, like being able to then start identifying who within your community you can start interacting with this wealth of information about yourself, because it is about preventing or delaying the onset. And so, but you can't do that if you don't know what your levels are. So your blood work is like it's like gold in my opinion, and that is really what you want to do. And I don't know, in India, when you go into, maybe your primary care office, like their standard, like annual lab panel. I don't know what is typically in that, but I would suggest and always ensure that, ask the questions, maybe push back a little bit to say, I want to understand, and you can even see on the Cenegenics website, like the full comprehensive lab panels and compare it to say, I actually, I want to add the hormone panel. I want to understand what my cardio CRP is. I want to understand, what my cortisol levels are, because those are so important because
Right.
they play a huge role in how your body is managing stress and how you're sleeping and how your cognition is. So if you're just looking at like a basic like CBC panel and your cholesterol, that's only a piece of the puzzle. You need the whole picture to really start then making choices that can help your overall health.
No, I think that's a good point. So those who are listening, if you think you want to compare to what they're doing in the US and you want to match up against the best, maybe you should go to the Cenegenics panel and just have a look.
Yeah.
And I think I love your thought, Christy. I think, see, I think what you said in the beginning, you're the CEO of your body, so you have to make those decisions, and you will have to decide when to start. And the advice you gave, probably what I found to translate it, is that the place you should start in India is at the 30s. The minute you
Yes.
hit your 30th birthday, you should start at least getting a sense of whereabouts. And I'll tell you one thing personally, Christy. What happened is we have a lot of incidents of diabetes in our family, so I was always worried about diabetes from a very early age. So I've got about 15 years longitudinal data for myself for diabetes. But when I did my genetic testing, it was
Mm.
such a shocker because it seems I was not predisposed to diabetes, but I was more predisposed to stroke. And I never had measured my BP before that, so it was because I didn't expect it to be high. But the first
I
intervention I did after that was get a home BP monitor.
Yeah, I love that story because that reinforces when I said don't guess. Just
Yeah,
because you think you know doesn't
right,
mean you know. And it's not until you get the data that you really do know.
right. And the other challenge we have in India is we don't have historical data for going back a lot. So
Mm.
even if I assume there was diabetes in the previous generation, I have no way of knowing what it was in the generation before that and before that. So I personally feel genetic testing is a better marker. It doesn't complete the picture, but gives you a general direction in which you need to go.
You are absolutely correct. Genetic testing is really like I know it's here, but it's the future
Right.
of really being precise to understand what you might be predisposed to, and also, it doesn't just apply to disease. I mean, it even applies to how do your genes metabolize caffeine, right? So, oftentimes people, they kind of hit 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they're like, hit the wall, and they're like, oh, I need my cup of coffee or I need an energy drink. It, and so then they're drinking it all throughout the day and they just don't feel right. Well, it's likely, you need to look at their hormones and their cortisol, all of those things. But on top of that, when you layer in the genetics, they might be their genes might metabolize caffeine at an accelerated rate. And so they're only getting a fraction of the benefit out of that cup of coffee. And
Right.
so, what other options are there for them to incorporate so that they're not, drinking gallons and gallons of coffee every day, but they're able to address and kind of keep that alert feeling. So the genetic testing is so powerful, and I agree everybody should absolutely get the genetic testing done because it really it goes as deep as it could possibly go, and then that just gives you better information, and then that creates more options and choices, and that is again how you're able to pick and choose what's going to work within your lifestyle so that you can create healthier habits and sustain it long term and not fall off the wagon, 6
Yeah.
months, 12 months after the fact.
Okay, one more uh, controversial topic. I won't say controversial; it's more irritating these days. So what happens is a lot of us have wearable devices, and you mentioned rings or watches, and not all of them are clinically grade. That means they are basically wellness devices. They're not cleared for clinical grade devices. And there's a lot of noise, right? Your steps and heart rate variability and sleep. So how does one, I mean, when I send my some of my parameters to my physician, he says, okay, good, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
So there's no one way to triage all of this into your health span or some kind of a platform. So my question to you is, how much of this data, wellness data, how much of that is noise and how much of that is really useful in your experience?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of noise. There is a lot of noise. Um, we have always approached this, at Cenegenics with our patients, and then me personally, and if I have time, I'll just share a little personal
Mhm.
story about this because this really hits home for me. But it's it's if the information that you're receiving, what at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, does the data I'm getting from whatever it is that you're using, you're wearing, is it going to change my health outcome? Will it
Mhm.
change the way I make decisions about my health?
Very
So,
important.
in the most simplest, if I had to say it in the most simplest way, the data should create clarity and not anxiety. And if
Mhm.
it does not drive action, it's just a notification, right? So when we think about the data that we receive, I think for most people, it's, you're looking at your sleep duration, you're looking at your resting heart rate, you're looking at your glucose, maybe you wear a
CGM.
glucose CGM, blood pressure, right? Body composition. So when you're doing those things, it's important to know, like, what am I going to do with this information, and is it going to help me make different choices so that I can lead a healthier lifestyle. And again, it really does tie back to having that resource, that partner,
Mhm.
that expert to help you understand the data that you're getting. But if I could say one thing, and then it ties a little into my story, is when you get the data, the most important thing is you really want to look for trends. You're not looking for a single reading.
Yeah.
And I think that not everybody realizes that, and so they get almost consumed, maybe have some anxiety because they get a single reading that is, maybe not in, maybe it's, you score red in your sleep score, whatever, it is on your wearable device. And that sends you into a panic. And then you just
Right.
start going, well, what do I need to do? I didn't sleep well, I didn't do this. But it's not about that single data. It's about trends over time. And you really have
Right.
to apply that to every single data point that you're receiving, because each data point should have an action. So is it sleep, nutrition, strength training, stress management, or, supplementation with whether it's nutraceuticals or pharmaceuticals, hormones,
Mhm.
like how do you use and action that data? So myself, I actually, went and got an Aura ring, and I think, great. Went and got an Aura ring, wanted to just kind of understand like how I was sleeping. And so I was wearing it, and my sleep scores weren't great. I wasn't like feeling especially great, and not like I was getting restful night's sleep. And mind you, I was on my own Cenegenics program, and so I was, getting my labs done regularly. So we were tweaking things along the way as it related to different products that I was taking. I was kind of trying to adopt some new, lifestyle activities to help with just kind of like overall stress and mental wellness. And so I was making changes along the way, still wearing my Aura ring. Well, I had a wonderful night's sleep. I woke up feeling great. And I looked at my health score or my sleep score, and it was in the tank. Like it was red. It was just really bad. And I got so nervous and upset. And so I psychologically
Uh,
set myself up
right.
to have a bad day. I was like,
Mm.
I thought, oh my gosh, I got a great night's sleep. I'm going to be so productive today. I was ready to like take on the day. And when I looked at that sleep score, I was like, my shoulders kind of slumped down, and it was just really discouraging. And so when I shared this with my personal health coach, he's like, Kristy, it's not a single data point. We need to look at the trends over time.
Right.
And sure enough, when we backed out the data and started looking at the trends, we could see where I had progressively gotten improved sleeping and scores, right? But this one particular night, after kind of digging into what I ate for dinner the night before, that likely had an impact on my sleep score. But it wasn't that um, I didn't get a good night's sleep and I wasn't ready to take on the day. But psychologically, I was just looking at that one data point without the full picture to understand how it really applied to me. So, a very long winded answer to say, I think that there is absolutely a place, and in the future, there will be a place for the wearables for the data, but every data point needs to have an action, and if it doesn't, it's just information. It's just an update. It's not something that you need to lock onto and overly obsess and create anxiety for yourself when it might not even be necessary.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I totally resonate with your story. I have a similar product. Actually, there's a legal battle going on between these two companies because
Mm.
so it's called Ultra Human, and that's what I use, and I swear by the sleep score. And over a period of time, I've learned to understand that it's more longitudinal. So, one final question to you,
Yeah.
Christy. And for those of you listening to us, I'm doing this at 4:30 in the morning. It's about 5:15 here, and that's why you saw the cup of coffee. And Christy's doing it late her evening, so that's global collaboration for you. Uh, but I hate to give predictions because all of us got 2020 wrong. We never estimated that we'll be in the longest lockdown. We had COVID, and none of us saw that coming. But if you had to give some kind of a prediction for 2035, 10 years from now, what are some of the trends you are seeing from your perspective that will change the way we take charge of this health? Now the whole story today and over the last 5 years have been how can we do more with what we have, with the data, with the compute, with all the technology at our disposal and the awareness. So, how do you see this trending over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I really think that there is going to be a shift in healthcare
Mhm.
from, that sick care model to a more continuous performance and prevention approach.
Right.
And as a result of that, I think we'll see fewer catastrophic events
Hmm.
and really be able to show that people are able to maintain and frankly should be optimized well, across their middle life and well beyond that. I think as a society, I think that the adoption of that approach is going to allow for more, I guess maybe call second careers, right? So people that are able to like stay at peak performance, function higher for years to come, and they want to be part of their community. And again, maybe it's not like maybe it's not just a corporate job or whatever they're doing as their first career, but their second career might be, getting more involved with the community, traveling and being part of, different opportunities that give them fulfillment and purpose in their life. So I see that just people are going to be able to be more fulfilled as a result of that. I think retirement, I think we'll see less of a cliff. I think we're going to see a more phased approach because people will be able to start planning and will be planning for more around vitality and not just their finances, right? And I think that is going to be like such an exciting time
Right.
when you're planning for that those the last 2 decades of your life. What where are you going, what are you doing,
Right.
what are you able to like embrace in a really amazing way and not just worried about like your finances and having to like work and or you have to retire because you can't work anymore, but you aren't, at your peak with your health. And so I think that's going to be a big piece. I think for healthcare systems, I think that risk stratification will probably become standard. I think that early intervention for sure
Mhm.
is going to become the normal instead of the exception. And as a result, I think that that's going to really drive like that reduction in like late stage chronic disease costs. And for individuals, in this time frame, I think we're just going to have this huge shift where it's going to become more widely accepted. So your, let's say, this individual's in their 60s and 70s. I think their kids and their kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, you're creating a legacy that is very much embodying of treating your health as your greatest asset.
Mm.
So, it won't be like, how do I just live longer? It'll be, how do I stay capable and able to do everything I love doing when I'm 80, 90 plus years old? And they'll have the answers. They'll have their operating system like really precise and just running very well. And their legacy in their family and in the community, their friends are going to see that. And I think that people are going to embrace it, and it's going to become just part of everyday. That's just who we are now as a society, that we focus on health and vitality, and less on disease, treating diseases, and settling for what we have seen historically with our grandparents and parents that they might have struggled with in their health. We're able to really make a difference and create a whole new opportunity and life that is going to be incredibly like vibrant and flourishing, and I think we're just and as a result we're just going to have a much more productive society, and so then
Right.
everything else that comes along with that, right? That's what
Yeah,
I predict.
I think it's a fantastic, prediction you've given. The only thing I'm um, curious about is how that'll impact succession. We've already seen that, in certain cases, Warren Buffett, for example, he just stepped down at what, 95.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and this might be slightly, a lot of the finance guys might not agree with me. What makes him a very successful rich guy, entrepreneur,
Mhm.
is that he lived that long. Had he
Mhm.
not lived that long, he may not have been that famous. So now there are various thoughts you can put in your head. I mean, I'm sure, Christy, you've given them so many ideas. Prolong your life, improve your health, take charge. I think taking charge, I think, is the biggest message. And I love one statement you made. It should not create anxiety. Can you repeat that? I really love that. That
Yeah.
data should not create anxiety. It should.
Date, yeah, it shouldn't. So I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. Oh, um, data should create clarity, not
Not anxiety.
anxiety.
I love that. So get your data to give you clarity, not anxiety. Don't worry about numbers going out of whack. Just make sure you understand why they're doing that. And
Correct.
if you're not taking action, it's just a notification. I love that too. So
Yes.
those are excellent thoughts. Anything else, Christy, you would like to say, especially to a lot of our folks in India who probably are just in this journey since COVID? But I think it's getting pretty serious here. And the number of interventions I see, the discussions I have nowadays are pretty much on the intervention side, not on the disease identification side.
Well, I don't want to like rehash everything, things that I've already said. I guess I will just, kind of closing thoughts would be for the audience who's listening, you've already taken the first step because you're listening to this podcast. So that is pretty incredible. And Dr. Vikram, you've created a platform that is allowing people to learn more and have access to what possible resources or what questions even they should be asking. And so I guess I would say for those that have listened, like now, you took the first step, now take control of your health. And for the audience, share it. Share the information with your family, with your friends, with your community. Start spreading the awareness. Send them this podcast link, because I think the more that we can share and drive awareness around how we can all just be better humans in the sense of how we approach our health and really treating it as that asset that it is. I think that's really what I define as success, and it's about sharing and just reinforcing and encouraging. But it's been a pleasure being on here. I've just really enjoyed it, and thank you so much. So yes, those are my parting words.
Thank you, Kristy. Very, very gracefully put. And thank you once again for taking time out. I know it's late in your evening, and we did that to suit at least my biological availability. I'm not a very evening person. But thank you once again, and it was a pleasure talking to you, and we hope to stay in touch. And of course, I
Absolutely.
think a lot of what people can best do is learn from this and visit the Cenegenics website,
Yes.
understand their lab tests, and they can always interact with you. I think you do interact a lot with people who reach out to you.
We do. We absolutely do. So I do encourage you visit our website. It's www.cenegenics.com. And there's a lot of information on there. There's a lot of blogs that we're posting and other YouTube videos and platforms just to educate and spread the word about, what is possible and how people can approach it. So I do encourage you to check it all out.
All right. Thanks a lot, Christy, and have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.